The last time we did a giant ranking on all of the Wispy Woods boss battles throughout the Kirby franchise. Now this time, since we do have new additions to King Dedede, we are doing 25 total King Dedede boss fight rankings. Yes, I have put together a list of 25 different King Dedede boss battles throughout the franchise history, and we are going to rank them, seeing which one comes out on top. Also, today's video is sponsored by Sakurako and Tokyo Treat. More on them later. If you guys enjoy this content, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on more things Kirby. And of course, let's get into the video of the top 25 King Dedede boss fights. Coming in at number 25 and starting the list, we have Kirby Quest Dedede from Kirby Mass Attack. Now this was just a side game that really just required timing, so it was probably one of the weakest ones against King Dedede. All you gotta do is time your button press at the right time in order to do dangerous and bigger attacks to King Dedede, and that was really about it. It was kind of just like a rhythm game, if anything. It's also funny that King Dedede just sits there and gets run over. Number 24, we have Pinball Dedede. This is from Kirby's Pinball Land. Now, honestly, I've never played this game, but watching this gameplay, it's actually hilarious how easy this looks. Seriously, Kirby is hitting Dedede by himself 90% of the time, so you could probably beat this boss by just setting the game console on the ground and letting Kirby beat King Dedede by himself. But at the end of the day, it is a spin-off game, so it makes sense. I feel like I'm one of the only people I know that actually enjoy Kirby's Dream Course. It's actually a lot of fun to play with a friend, but as far as this boss goes, it's just pathetically easy to the point where you can just continue to hit Kirby in the same way, where it will hit Dedede in the same spot and back him up. But honestly, my real question is, who gave Dedede boobs in this? Who else was a lucky person to have Kirby tilt and tumble? Well, probably not many of you, because this game would probably break your wrist the way it did mine. You had to turn, flip, and spin your Game Boy around in order to get Kirby to move around the stage. And in this boss battle against King Dedede, at least he attacks this time, but he runs back and forth as you're tilting the screen in order to get Kirby to bump into him, and obviously roll into the cannon so he can shoot right back. Dodging his attacks and watching out for his invincibility is key here, but for the most part, it's a very basic boss battle and simple, but it does enough for a game where you're not really pressing any buttons at all besides moving back and forth. Number 21, we are still in Kirby spin-offs with Kirby Block Ball. At least King Dedede actually fights back this time, because he turns into Snake with a whole RPG. Tasty! You can shoot rockets and break down your blocks in order to bounce the ball back and forth, making the game a lot harder, so this could be a very difficult boss battle if you're not paying attention to where the rockets are being shot at. It's really not that bad for a Kirby spin-off. Kirby Battle Royale actually had a King Dedede boss fight outside of just fighting him in the arena, and you fight the Dededestroyer Z, which is a pretty interesting fight because considering the fact that you're not even really fighting King Dedede all that much, your main focus is battling and beating up all the Kirbys around King Dedede. The whole premise was picking up and throwing Kirbys into the cannon in order to blast them at the robot. This then allowed you to wail on King Dedede as everybody's watching live from the monitor. This battle isn't too bad, but the main problem here is that most of the battle takes place between you and the other Kirbys rather than King Dedede himself.
Watch out!
Kirby's Squeak Squad is the very first time we have a mainline appearance on this list, and it's a very boring battle. It's one of the very first battles of the game, and I know he's not like a main antagonist here, that's probably why he's very easy, but it's very boring. King Dedede's attacks are very slow, very telegraphed, and he only has like 2 of them, and they're just not that good. This is probably one of the weakest boss fights against King Dedede that we have in the series. Yeah, I was kind of expecting more here. Well, at least we still get to see Dedede do his gasp when he loses. Coming in at number 18, we have Dreamland Dedede, the very first time we fight King Dedede, and he has his signature moves here. This was just an all-around really good boss fight with all of King Dedede's iconic moves with his hammer, his super jump, even his suction. This is King Dedede at its core. It was a really decent fight, of course, for the very first time we ever fought him. Of course, this is the first time we get to see his weird addiction of sitting on Kirby's face. In this second version of King Dedede with Dreamland 2, King Dedede is possessed by dark matter. I'm still not quite sure why he's snoring in the middle of battle, but he also gets mad. He'll throw the hammer at Kirby and then eventually lose his mind that he lost his hammer and start chasing after Kirby in a vicious form, making the battle a lot harder than the first time we seen it. This is truly just an improved version of the first battle. Nightmare Dedede is the better version of what we saw within Kirby's Squeak Squad. Kirby's Squeak Squad really is just weird that a game that came afterwards was just a worse version of the battle. Now, I know in Nightmare and Dreamland, this is kind of the end of the game battle against King Dedede. It's a lot different, but I like this version. It plays just like the original, and of course, you can still beat him very quickly if you use something like the hammer, but it's a lot of fun nevertheless. Mecha Dedede comes from Kirby's Return to Dreamland, and it's a giant robotic version of King Dedede again, very similar to that of Kirby's Dream Course, but this time, He is moving around, throwing things at you, swinging his hammer, throwing bombs, and having tons of minions attack you as well, as you have to blast it with your blaster. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, you think this is better than the original King Dedede boss fights? Well, he has boobs again. I like how you could just break down pieces of his body and see the Robo interior and just kind of break him apart piece by piece. It's actually really satisfying to play, and of course the time challenge is very difficult as well because it's going to stretch you all the way to the very end. He also has this fun attack where you have to play back and forth with a bomb that he throws at you and at the right time shoot it right back at him so it can blow him up. It's really fun. And right when you think you defeated him, he gets right back up for one last battle and you have to continuously shoot his hammer so that way it drops and breaks his head. Number 14, we have Crystal Shards Dedede. Now, this was almost like a 3D / 2.5D version of the one that we've seen from Dreamland 3. And it's pretty much the same battle, just in a different style. It's a little slower, and his attacks are a little more telegraphed, but besides that, it's still a really good boss battle. He also has a part 2 where he has the giant eyeball come out of his stomach and it starts trying to chomp after Kirby like a creepy horror movie, and once again resembling the boss battle from Dreamland 3. Next, of course, we have Kirby Dreamland 3. It's pretty much the same battle, but it did it first, and I still think it does it a little better. It's a lot quicker, and just the attacks make a lot more sense in the grand scheme of things. I can't really explain what I mean. It just feels a lot slower and laggier in 64. And I really like this battle. Of course, it also has a part 2 where that giant mouth comes out and the eyeball shooting the giant orbs at Kirby, and it really is just a fun boss fight with 2 parts that really keeps you on your toes the entire time. But first, I want to thank today's sponsor, Tokyo Treat and Sakurako. They send these really cool treats and desserts and snacks all from Tokyo, Japan, and I haven't even looked at them. That's what the crazy part is this time, because we're going to play a little game with them, because we don't really know what's in here. So I'm going to get to that in a second, but real quick, thanks to Tokyo Treat for sponsoring this video. You guys can find out all the information down below in the comments. Click for your own discount code and all that cool stuff down below, but I'll get into more detail right now. So this is what we're doing today. We got boxes of Tokyo Treats from Tokyo Treat, and the person that comes in last is going to have to randomly try one. So if you get some caramel popcorn soda, you're going to drink some caramel popcorn soda. Mix them up.
We eating some beans tonight.
1, 2, 3. Break! Break. First, thank you.
I just choked. Oh, Drake, why are you holding the camera like this? Why are you grabbing it? Drake, hold it.
I'm gonna mix it up after you pick the box.
Okay. Alright.
You grab 2 things.
Oh.
What we looking at? Oh, you putting the puffs back? Putting the corn polish back?
We got some.
Yeah, show them what that is.
What are we rocking with?
That looks good.
It's like a
80%?
It's like a cola.
It's a picture of a cola on the back. Let me pop one with you.
Yep.
It's like those bottle caps, but they got fizzy in them.
Very good. You can't handle sour?
Whoa, I got my jaws a little bit. Alright. Alright. Oh yeah, go crazy.
Without
Oh yeah.
Oh, he's bringing out the hands.
Uh-oh. Yeah. Oh, you got some cookies. Open that up. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think.
You are good though.
Oh!
Was that a cone or a waffle?
It's a
Yes.
waffle. It says Belgian waffle. Is that a cone or a waffle?
Lose 4 times in a row. Like, this is your 4th snack. I know you're probably hungry, so I'm gonna let you have that. You're probably hungry. But try to tell everybody how you feeling right now. What you got here? We got the pudding Kit Kats.
Drake, you're a villain for eating your Kit Kats without splitting them apart. Double slice.
In between the Kit Kat. Oh,
What type of
new contestant.
contestant? Am I near your snacks?
Yes.
Am I near your snacks?
No.
You put these strategically put this close to me, bro.
They dusted with.
I think
Marshmallow.
this is fluffy. It tastes like a waffle.
Real quick, guys, there are a lot more snacks that we tried, and a lot of Mario Kart gameplay that went on, and a lot of funny antics that went place in a full-fledged video, so I decided to put the entire video on the side channel, Strouse House. Go ahead and check that out in the description down below to watch the entire video. Thanks, guys. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you want to see more, I posted an entire video on my side channel, Strouse House. Go check it out there. We're just being ridiculous and acting crazy on camera. But thank you again to Tokyo Treat for sponsoring this video. Kirby's Adventure was the next game to really do this classic King Dedede battle, and it did it so well. Obviously, you can have copy abilities if you wanted to, or you could just spit the stars back out that King Dedede left behind. But he had his signature jump, his hammer, all types of attacks, even his suction ability, and it was just an all-around good King Dedede boss fight. It really is just one that set the series staple for how he would actually use his moveset in the future, and it did so really well. No complaints here. Kirby Superstar or Superstar Ultra both had some really good King Dedede boss battles, and it just really felt fun, fast-paced, and also just the cinematics around everything was really cool. You were in this arena fighting King Dedede with this giant crowd watching you, including Mario, Luigi, and Peach, which was pretty cool. But you also get a second version where everybody leaves and it's just Kirby and King Dedede 1v1, and King Dedede puts on his famous mask and he starts going crazy. It's a very iconic boss battle and a lot of people really love this one, myself included. Now to the final 10. The top 10 King Dededes. Number 10, we have Yarn Dedede from Epic Yarn. This time, King Dedede, once again, of course, gets possessed, but this time by Yin Yarn and his minions as they string him up and control him, and you have to pretty much slam on top of him and pull off the different pieces of yarn. Now, this was actually very unique because we really never really seen anything like this. Normally, fighting King Dedede is always the same thing. You suck up a star, you spit it out, or use your copy abilities. This time, Kirby has no copy abilities, so this is pretty unique. I actually really enjoyed this. It was just a fresh take on the King Dedede battle that we've come to love for years and years. This was really good. I really like this. Next up, we have Kirby Mass Attack. Yes, believe it or not, this game actually has a really fun King Dedede boss battle. He actually fights you inside of his hot air balloon and also outside of the hot air balloon with his hammer, and he also jumps up and down and tries to slam on all your mini Kirbys, and if he does, they're going to take a pummeling. But it's your job to bounce these bubbles of bombs back up at him in order to knock him down for you guys to attack him. Eventually, when you knock him down, it's actually just a battle against King Dedede where he's doing similar attacks from the past. I actually really like this, once again being very unique for the King Dedede boss battles that we've seen over the years, and I just thought it was really good. Also, at the very end, you get to knock him on the ground and then actually jump him with all your Kirbys. It's kind of crazy and brutal.
Fight back! Fight back! Fight back!
Next up, we have Team DDD 32 from Fighters Deluxe. Now, this is a battle of 32 mini King Dededes. It's actually a lot of fun, and they don't really do a whole bunch. They only have like 1 or 2 attacks, and they charge you, and all you have to do is hit them one time until they fly away. But it's still a lot of fun. I can't really explain it. It's very unique and something that's very interesting for them to do. Also, at the very end, you have 2 medium-sized ones that fight off pretty hard, and then one last final one that actually grows a lot bigger too as you fight him with his giant gold hammer. Lots of his moves are also based off of past games, so it works really well. I actually really like this. Now, I don't know all the lore behind King D-Mind, if there's any, but he comes from the mirror dimension, and he has like part of dark matter, part of him. I don't really know what's happening with him, but it's a fun boss nevertheless, because it does have pieces of like all the past King Dedede boss fights. The basic King Dedede, the mass Dedede fights, and even the dark matter fights from the Dreamland games. I actually think this is pretty good, but the only reason it's not higher is because it's a very slow-paced fight. You know, everybody's just kind of bulked up with tons of armor, and just it doesn't feel as fast-paced and as interesting as past Kirby games and actual mainline Kirby games, if that makes any sense. Both versions of this fight are actually extremely similar. In fact, I think they're exactly the same in both games. They just, for some reason, decided to bring it back and have D-Mind back again. I don't really know why. But at the end of the day, it's just a decent boss fight. It utilizes the background and the foreground, and it is a fun fight. But once again, it's just very slow paced, and it feels like it's more of just a stand still, beat 'em up, level up your characters as high as they can go, and you'll win no matter what. King Dedede from Blowout Blast was actually the first time we see DDD in a 3D space, and it's actually a lot of fun. There's a lot of stars to pick up. Even though you don't have copy abilities, this is still a lot of fun to play against him. He has all of his abilities in the past games, such as his super jump, his super suction, and even his hammer. Eventually, you'll get to fight a giant masked version of him, which is just super fun. Once again, being the first 3D Kirby boss fight ever, this was just a blast to play through. And of course, he could shoot rockets out of his hammer, drop the giant hammer laser and everything. This was just a blast, and this is seriously one of my favorite King Dedede boss battles, even for a Kirby spin-off like this one. We then get to Kirby Star Allies, where once again, we have a nice fight against King Dedede. He runs back and forth, slides, jumps up in the air, and uses his hammer, just the same that we always see him. But then... he then goes on a rampage with his giant brand new muscular arms and starts throwing different things at everybody, slamming the ground, and also pole dancing. These next two were very hard to place because they were very good King Dedede boss battles, but this one coming in at number 4 is Mass Dedede from Triple Deluxe. King Dedede is being controlled by Tyranza, and you have to battle him in 2 different phases. The first phase is pretty much all the combinations of different King Dedede tactics that we've seen over the years, but this time a little amplified. For instance, his suction is a lot bigger, his jump is a lot wider range hitting when he lands on the ground, and stuff like that. But it's phase 2, which gets kind of crazy, because he drops the hammer for a giant axe. But it's the Shadow version that really loses his mind, because he goes on a move that's literally like a 25 hit combo and doesn't stop for a solid 30 seconds, no joke. The one that was very close is King Dedede Clone And D3 in Kirby Planet Robobot. This time you have a copy of King Dedede that fights very similar to the one in Triple Deluxe, but around a quarter of the way through the battle, he'll break into 3, where they'll start slamming their hammers viciously across the stage, and you have to keep defeating them over and over and over again as they respawn, come back, over and over until eventually initiating phase 2. Phase 2, though, is absolutely insane. They get into this giant machine called the D3, and it is vicious. It has all these cool electric blue lines on the ground which shows you which direction it's going to travel, and it utilizes the foreground, the background, the left and right sides of the stage, and every single square inch of the stage. It's actually one of the coolest things I've seen in a long time. It is a great boss battle. This thing has over like 10 different attacks that it can launch out at Kirby, keeping you on your toes the entire battle. This is one of the best King Dedede boss battles for sure. King Dedede and Meta Knight in Kirby Fighters 2 was some of the best duo combination boss fight I've ever seen. Like seriously, they actually really work together. It doesn't feel like 2 random obstacles fighting you. They actually do team attacks and stuff, and it's really cool. King Dedede uses a whole bunch of abilities from his past, but it's the addition of Meta Knight which really makes this a lot of fun and kind of unfair. I get it, it's kind of Meta Knight in here as well, but it still is a King Dedede boss fight. And in the extra version, the harder version at the end, you get the masked forms of both of these guys, and they go crazy, doing some super ground pounds and team attacks and throwing each other through the air. It's actually a lot of fun and really cool to see unfold in front of you. Now I know having Meta Knight in there kind of takes away from King Dedede, but them together really does make King Dedede stand out. He has some really cool attacks, and I really like this. And my number 1 favorite King Dedede boss fight is the brand new Kirby and the Forgotten Lands Wild/Forgo Dedede. I'm sorry, but these are so much fun. It translates the moves of King Dedede perfectly. He has his slide and fall, he has his giant jump, his hammer, he even throws out Gordos like he does in Smash, and in his later versions, he does some crazy things. In Forgo Dedede is just a more intense version where he has 2 hammers and shooting lava from each throw and each toss of the hammer. He can even throw them at Kirby, shoot from the sky, and it's just kind of chaotic. And then he has a second phase as well, where he gets on all 4s as Forgo Dedede and starts going literally buck wild on Kirby, charging him on all 4s, rushing towards him, and just trying to attack him like a primal animal. It's crazy. He flips the stage, turns the stage around. I mean, seriously, everything about this is amazing. They could have made a very basic 3D King Dedede boss fight, but they went all out with this one, and I really appreciate it, and that is why it's my number 1 King Dedede boss fight. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today and looking at the top 25 King Dedede boss fights. Let me know your rankings down below and if you would have changed anything or added anything in any other spot. Thank you so much. Thanks again to Tokyo Treat for sponsoring this video. Once again, if you want to see that full-fledged video, check it out on Strouse House. The link will be in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll see you all on the next one. See you guys.